Welcome back to The Grind and welcome to Trading Post Day 2. Now the featured item today is 1,000 rubies for 200 sigils. Now this is actually not a bad deal because on average 1,000 rubies will get you 240 sigils. So it's essentially a 20% increase if you go by averages. Now, I'm sure we've all had experiences where we get amazing drops, but more often than not, even though they say average, it feels to us like we tend to get far below average most of the time. Now, with super sigil chests, you can spend rubies to get sigils. And if you don't need your sigils right now, you can then buy these rubies to save 4 super sigil chests at the end of the season. And in doing so, you will end up getting, if you hit the averages, 240 back for each of these that you purchase. And it looks like we can get 10 of them. So you can get 10,000 rubies in exchange for 2,000 sigils. And then at the very end of the season, that 2,000 sigils would then turn into 2,400. So you'd get basically 400 sigils extra from doing this exchange. Now, this is kind of a tough decision for me personally because it isn't that high numbers. And so if all of this is for potentially an average of 400 sigils, you have to decide if that's worth it to you. Because in actuality, you might end up losing on this deal. Yes, there is a chance that you will get more sigils than that and actually end up getting a pretty sweet deal, especially if those extra super sigil chests that you are able to afford because of this offer is what lands you on that 5,000 sigil prize that is oftentimes available in the super sigil chests. But there's no way to guarantee that. And if you strictly play by averages in your calculations, then there is a reward in doing this exchange, but it is a very small reward in my opinion, and you do have to invest the sigils now in order to get them back later. And you know, if you don't need anything right now and you want the extra rubies, whatever it may be, whatever your situation may be, you can potentially get more sigils at the end of the season for it. But, you know, the risk is high and the reward seems somewhat small. But again, it's really hard to say because the average is not really what you're going to get. You might get less, you might get more. Now, this next one, you can exchange fire shards, which most players don't really use fire shards for. Building towers unless they're using them to build a fire turret to then merge into another tower for a building that they don't have the resources for. So if you look at it as, do I need these shards? You probably don't. So then why not buy them? Unfortunately, there's only 2 that you can purchase. And all you get is 10 silver chests and 10 bronze chests. The bronze chests are really not that valuable, but those silver chests, they have over time, if you continue to invest in these, you might end up getting a stash big enough to get something good. But the problem is, if you just open those 10, you're probably going to get trash, and it really isn't going to benefit you unless you're saving up for thousands of them before you do your opening, because then you can run through the entire circuit and make sure you get something of value. Now, the next one is 100 sigils for food packs, and I think we're just going to skip right over this because I don't think it's worth spending sigils on food packs because there's lots of other ways to get the food packs. They're much more easy to acquire these days. And if you don't have the food packs, you can just go and hit a base or 2 to get the food that you need. The next one is a legendary red mage HP glyph. Now, if you don't have runes for your base and you're really trying to boost up your defense power, 250 sigils is not that expensive. And it is difficult to get decent runes these days. And so if you're newer to the game and you have the 250 sigils and you really want to focus on your base, this would not be a bad rune or glyph, to buy. Because like I said, silver chests are not easy to acquire. And if you do open them, you're mostly going to get crappy stuff. So this is something that you can say, I'm guaranteed going to get a decent glyph and I do want one for my base. You can invest the 250. I don't need it, so I'm going to skip it. Next, we have Chisels. This is actually a fairly decent deal. For 250 sigils, you get 50 chisels. And so if you're short on chisels and you have the extra sigils and it fits in with your season plan, that is something that you can consider. It's about basically the same as previous deals that we've had with chisels. And so if you didn't get it then, but you need it now, then that's an option for you. And you can get 10 of them, so up to 500 chisels, which will remove several runes or glyphs from your base or your dragons. Now, unfortunately, this wasn't quite as exciting as the last day's trading post, because everyone wants chests that are essentially free because you basically get your rewards back. These rubies are pretty similar, but you kind of have to work with delayed gratification because, like I said, you got to wait till the end of the season to use them on super sigil chests if you actually want to gain or get a chance at gaining more sigils in return. So that does kind of make it less exciting. And the fact that, if you do this conversion and then you don't get the right drop rates, you basically wasted sigils. Whereas with the chests, you basically got back your sigils. And even if you didn't, you also got all the extra timers and other resources in it. So this one is much less exciting. And me personally, I feel I'm going to pass on this one because I don't know that the extra 10,000 rubies is going to make a big difference for me personally, but for other players, and maybe when I was struggling a little bit more to reach a mythic, then I probably would have considered this, because that extra chance at hitting higher sigils at the end of the season would make a bigger difference, especially if you're not getting a mythic this season and you think you're going to have some extra sigils, then these rubies are probably best invested into the following seasons. So these sigils that you don't need, you can buy these rubies with and then save those rubies, effectively carrying sigils from this season into the next, because you'll use those rubies from this season in next season to open chests that will get you the next season's sigils. And that is important because for you newer players watching this, all the sigils you earn from this season will disappear at the end if you don't spend them. You cannot use them in the next season. However, this is a way that you can kind of get around that, because if you spend the sigils on the rubies and save the rubies for the next season, then those rubies can then be spent on chests, which will give you the new season's sigils. So that is a way to get around it. That is something to consider if you are in those positions. So even though I'm not getting them, you might still want to get them because, hey, everyone's in a different place. So I do hope this video was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.